Hi, guys, and
Hi,
welcome to this week's episode of Better Than Sex. My name is Julia Reed Nichols.
I am Kitty Cat DeMille, and we have a special guest today. Will you like to introduce yourself?
I'm Isabella.
Isabella. So, Isabella, tell us a little bit about yourself. Where is your wheelhouse in the sexy world?
So that's a great question. Where is my wheelhouse in the sexy world? I need more people to ask me that. Actually, I run an online magazine dedicated to modeling, but specifically kitten play.
And are you the dominator in the kitten play world, or are there other competitors?
There's actually not too many. I think it's a bit of a niche. So there's not too many people really exploring it currently, which I actually would love to see more people getting into it. And I think recently it has become more popular with the documentaries and such, which is nice. But yeah, right now we're really the only sort of kitten play dedicated magazine out there as of right now.
And what's your sexy origin story? Like how did you get in the world of sexiness?
So originally, as you know, this is not an American accent. I'm actually from the UK. Specifically, I was born in Surrey, which is just south of London. And when I got older, I was basically going for university. I wanted to be an archaeologist, of all things. And I actually met a gentleman who was American, and he was in England on business. And he and I started a relationship, and we did a long distance relationship. And eventually he said, would you like to come out and see America? And I said, I'd love to see the States. So I traveled out there just in a tourist kind of way. And he's based out in Denver here, as you're in Colorado. And I loved it. I just fell in love with America. You guys are so friendly and warm and open. And I was just like, this is a place for me. You know, there's skiing and snowboarding here nearby in Colorado. If you like hiking, there's gorgeous outdoor places to visit. There's Red Rocks Amphitheater if you love music. And I was like, I can't leave this place. I had to, obviously, because I was on a visa. I had to go back, is the irony. Then I thought, I'm going to apply for a proper, I got the B12 visa, and then I'm going to come over here and stay. And eventually, many, many years later, I got a green card, and I've been in America now for 7-8 years or so. So yeah, I love it out here.
Okay. And did you start with the kitten play? How did you?
In England, I used to go to a lot of the fetish events like Torture Garden in London, Skin 2, and I absolutely loved those. I used to hang out in a place in London called Camden, and it's kind of like the fetish punk alternative kind of hub of London, a really, really great place. And it kind of opened my eyes to fetish in Europe. And we have a lot of great events in Europe and UK, but really fashion focused. So people wear a lot of latex and ball gowns. They're actually called fetish balls, right? And they're really, really beautiful. And when I moved to Denver, there wasn't really anything going on like that here. In that we have Thunder in the Mountains, which is a very large BDSM convention once a year, but there weren't really any like fashion focused events. So what I actually started doing was I ran fetish events. So we ran a fetish ball and some costume things, and that kind of led into the kitten play stuff. Actually. Because as you know, there's pony play and there's puppy play, but at the time, kitten play, it just really wasn't a thing. So I opened a website called www.kittenplay.net just to see if anyone would even, you know, this is before the days of Instagram and stuff, if anyone would even like resonate with it. And sure enough, we had thousands of members. So I was like, okay, it's not just me. There are other girls out there who kind of resonate with this sexy feline kind of vibe. And then from there, we purchased this building that I'm in right now, which is the Chateau, and opened the online magazine, which is, again, like when I'm comparing, I said it's a bit like Playboy because they have the bunny ears, but it's female owned and female empowerment focused and with the feline aesthetic.
And just because I'm not 100% clear on what puppy play and pony play are, they're pretty much the same thing, but with different animals.
It's under like imagine an umbrella for it, and it's called pet play is the name of it. And it's people who are looking to embody characteristics. In this case, if you think of the cat, very feline characteristics. So in the world. And it can just be sexy bedroom play, right? People can wear the gear like the ears in the bedroom, or it can be actually like a 24/7 lifestyle thing, which is what I do, where you're wearing ears out in public and you're dressing up and you have we make the collars as such as merchandise as well. And you kind of adopt that into your everyday life. The pony play is similar. People have, you've seen the bits, right? Where you see it in flags and BDSM, very similar. And they'll even have little hooves and stuff. It's very cute. But it's very expensive. Pony play gear is like insanely expensive. It's like $900 for a pair of hooves and stuff. So it was actually always a little bit out of my budget, which I think kid play. It's a little more approachable to the average. And it's very softcore. It's not like hardcore BDSM. It's very mainstream. Like our last documentary got over 12 million views. I think because it's a lot more approachable to the main public. And we have, if you think about it in our psyche, we have stuff like Catwoman, right? We have a lot of things that are already very sexy, feline, that are in mainstream media that make it more approachable.
Yeah, I am a huge fan of cat ears. Like I have quite a collection that I like to wear out when I'm shopping at Walmart and all that. To me, it just is a fun alternative on just being a human. And I absolutely adore the reaction of like the muggle to that situation. Like when you're in Home Depot and you're wearing cat ears and you get that like person that's like, oh my God, I love your ears. Or the tiara, or whatever it is you want to wear. It's
the accessories, right, that make it so special. And yeah, I love that you can go to Walmart or Hot Top anywhere now. I was at Kohl's the other day, and there were a bunch of cat ears, and I'm like, there's just cat ears everywhere. And it used to be just a Halloween thing. Everyone would have the cat ears at Halloween. And now, any time of year, you can pretty much go into any of these mainstream stores and find cat ears as an accessory. And that makes me proud. I like to think I was part of that revolution.
So tell us more about the Chateau.
Yes, the Chateau. Yes. It's basically it's a female empowerment-based, friendly, safe space for women to explore themselves, to dress up. And I know people are like, oh, you're just playing dress up and stuff. But I think putting on outfits and modeling is part of exploring yourself as a human being. And you only live once. And so there's nothing wrong with, trying on different costumes and beautiful corsets and putting back some of that old world glamour. I think in the current era that we're in right now, we've lost a lot of that. And fashion is at this very peculiar time in history where we don't really get to truly dress up anymore, express ourselves. And so by giving girls a space to come in and do that, where they're not going to be judged in any form by anyone, and they can really dress up as extravagant and wear long ball gowns here or lingerie and run around drinking champagne with all their friends, and everyone is in the same mindset. And that's just a mindset of love and acceptance. And I think ultimately that's what we're all looking for, is a place where we fit in and find a family. And
is it only females that live at the Chateau, or is it females and males?
So right now, actually, there's nobody living.
Okay.
Now it's so weird because the pandemic. There's actually I'm all alone. Yeah, I know, it's actually been really hard. But before, we'd have models will come through. In fact, the bedroom that I'm in right now, you're actually sitting on a gorgeous white four-poster bed in front of me, and models will come in and they'll travel in from out of state and they'll stay at the Chateau to do photo shoots. Or if there are local models and they're in school and they're struggling, they need a place to stay, it's a great place to do, so you don't have to focus on rent, so you can focus on your studies and stuff. But it's not like we have over 400 models. It's not like there are 400 models here at any given time. Right. The maximum people we've had living here, I believe, is 7 to 8 maximum at any time. So when we have an event here, though, you'll have up to 100 people on the property. So, yeah.
And how extensive is the property? How many bedrooms is it?
Right. So we have 6 bedrooms and we have a guest house. I wish I could almost show you. You can see it out the window. It actually looks like it's gorgeous barn with stained glass windows. And that actually is a whole guest house with 2 separate floors. And then we sit on 5 acres of property out here, which is lovely because it's in the woods. Having that nature and that privacy as well is, I think, really important just for the safety of everyone as well. And just having the space, again, to run around and kind of play. It's really great.
Now, do you have, how do I explain this? So when a while ago. I was very lucky to go to the Playboy Mansion twice.
Did you?
I did. Yes, I did. Yes. The first time, yes, the first time I went during the day, I auditioned for something. And it was very interesting experience because they bussed us up. It was for when the Palms was having the Playboy floor, and
I know all about it. Yep.
Yeah, and they did like the Playboy theme, and they were looking for girls to be blackjack dealers, and they were hiring pretty girls and then teaching them. So I was one of the people, because I was like, oh my God, I want to go to this audition.
Right.
And one of the things, and then afterwards, after I did my interview, they said, you can stay as long as you want and play around, you're welcome to do whatever and leave whenever. And so I like walked around, and like it was like everywhere you looked, there was a toy for a girl to play with. Like there were hula hoops set up, and then you would walk like 10 feet and there would be like a trampoline. And then there was the grotto, of course, and the zoo. And I was like, it's like an obstacle course in terms of like, oh, you should have this experience and go bounce on the trampoline, or you can go do this and that. Do you have that kind of situation at your chateau?
Very much so. And I think that's actually hearing about your experience, first of all, was awesome. You're very lucky that's a once in a lifetime kind of opportunity. So may I say you're very lucky to have done that. Very much so. Here we kind of have different areas set up on the property for people to explore, especially events, so that it's an immersive and kind of engaging environment, right? So we have things like, I don't know if you guys know about aerial or circus, kind of the lyras. It's like where they do the ribbon stuff. So we have all these different swings and things set up in the garden. We even have a lyra hoop that's metal with actual cat ears on it. And it's the same principle with like at Burning Man. If you go into a camp, you're looking for an experience. And so by setting up all these fun, like different play areas, whether it's a cuddle puddle full of cushions in the garden so that you can lay out and just enjoy everything. It's about creating that environment. And every time we do a different party here, in fact, we do have here a Midsummer Night's Dream party that we do. It's actually in honor of the one that Playboy
did in Playboy.
It very much carries on the same aesthetic, and the girls will wear fairy wings and lingerie, and it's by far our most popular event that we do in the year. Unfortunately, again, because pandemic is not happening this year, sadly. So fingers crossed that it all clears up and everything returns back to its glorious self.
So in terms of costuming, I know that costuming is expensive. So dressing these girls, you must have quite an extensive wardrobe. Do you get stuff custom made? Do you work with designers?
Yeah, we do. We actually, in fact, a couple of the girls who have models are themselves designers. So when they do runway work, whether it's here in New York, they'll often just supply the costumes for free, which is amazing, actually. Shout out to Angela from Fog Couture right there for her amazing designs. But they'll let the girls dress up and try them on and take their own photos in them. And I think for a lot of girls, they can't afford the wardrobe. It is to get custom made stuff. It doesn't matter if it's on Etsy or from a top designer. It is going to cost you a lot of money. And so by even my own personal wardrobe, I open up to the girls and you want to try on this gown? Absolutely. You can run around, have fun all day. And they love that. I think for them, it's a bit like a fairy tale thing, because they can come to this property and it's completely out of this world and unlike anything they've usually seen before. And then they're just allowed to do all this stuff and have free range and dress up and take the photos in beautiful locations they've always wanted. They love it. I think it's a great experience.
And what is one of the most unique stories of your experience in the Chateau life? Like the weirdest, strangest, most unique to your experience on this planet, in this world? Because I have
so many. How on earth am I gonna?
Well, you can tell us a couple. I would love to hear some of them.
Yeah, I have some crazy stories. One's a little scary, actually, but I think it's an important story for women and women's safety to actually on that one time. So we keep the address private, right? Kind of like, as I get every day these messages. Yeah, I want to come to the chateau. I expect a tour at so-and-so time. And I'm like, that's not how this works. I always use a Playboy Mansion. The Playboy Mansion was a private residence. It was Hugh Hefner's house. You could not just go into his house without an invite. You cannot just walk into my house, a private property, without, an invitation of some fashion. And one time this chap did manage to get a hold of the address. And I remember it very well because I'd just gotten my boobs done. I'd come out of hospital and I was, like if you've had the surgery, they give you a painkiller, but it's like very strong, right? So it kind of makes you a wee bit loopy. So I'm sitting there late at night, already kind of high, laying there in bed, and I saw these headlights across the wall. And I thought, well, that's weird because it's like 11 at night and nobody's meant to be coming over today. I wasn't expecting anybody. And so I got up and I went to the window and there was a car there, and we have a gate. We actually have a gate at the front of the property, luckily. And there was a guy standing outside and he was shouting and screaming all this stuff, like how he was going to come and kill us and all this like really crazy stuff. And I called the police immediately. I put on the light and my friend was like, don't turn on the light because then he'll know we're in the house. So we turned off the light, immediately called the police. He had left. The police came over. He'd been throwing the bins, like we had the dustbins, right, for garbage. He'd been throwing them across the gate and stuff because he couldn't get over the gate. So they fingerprint dusted the bins, nothing. They said, well, but he wasn't actually trespassing on a property. There's nothing really we can do about it, right? So bye. And I was like, okay. So then the next day comes around and I'm sitting up. I'm still sore from the surgery, right? And I sit up and I'm in this pain. And I swear to God, I hear this screaming and shouting. And I'm like, it's that guy again. So I go to the window and he's there. And this time I can see he's got a gun and he's holding the gun and all this stuff. And I'm just like, what the hell, And this is like someone I've never met in my life, never seen this guy in my life. You know what I mean? And I called the police again, right? And he leaves again, not before breaking part of my gate, mind you, and stuff. And he leaves and the police come back and they're again just like, yeah, there's nothing you can do. And I kept thinking, who is this random guy and how did he find my property? And then I opened up my Facebook and you know how there's like the others inbox? There's like your main inbox. Yeah, and then there's like your creepy, and I'm all girls know this, the others inbox is like full of dick pics and scary things, right? So yeah, it's just what it's for, right? And it's like going to like hundreds of messages from this guy. And at first they're okay, but I didn't see it. So it's not like I could have even responded if I wanted to, right? And they get more and more aggressive as the days go by. I'm going to find you. I'm going to get your address. I'm going to come and kill you. I'm going to rape you. I'm going to do all these horrible things to you. And it just escalated to the point where he managed which is enough, to then get the restraining order and stuff. Right. But that whole story just made me think about, and someone, again, I'd never met in my life. I'd never done anything wrong to this individual, in any stretch of imagination. But I think there's an important lesson to it for all of us as women, that I think people often don't understand is that in our day-to-day lives, we do have to be careful and take care of ourselves and take precautions. And people may think, oh, that's silly. Why should you be afraid walking to your car at night? But most of us do genuinely have to take that into consideration. And so something we started doing after this to wrap this story up is we actually started offering self-defense courses at the Chateau. So we had this girl come in and she was teaching self-defense and stuff to the girls, which I thought was really cool. And it's like a nice outlet because it is an important skill set for anyone, honestly, to learn. So that's probably my craziest Chateau story, and definitely a scary one. So don't be scared.
Yeah, that's definitely terrifying.
Yeah.
It's one of the curses of the internet is people can find you easily, I guess.
It can. It is. And there's something about the internet too. I think people watch videos and they're like, well, I must, because I have a YouTube channel, right? Mm-hmm. And what happens is I think people watch videos and they see, they'll see your eye and they'll say, well, I must know this person very well because we're having a conversation. And so it feels very natural. But I think what people often don't understand is that you don't actually know the people and you've not met them yet or whatnot, so you've not taken the time to get to know them. But we do lose that sense of a barrier on the internet. You can write whatever you want or say. So it's actually, with the Chateau stuff, we have a lot of gossip-based blogs as well, where people will discuss things like everything in my day-to-day life. I could do anything. We could be doing this right now, and they'll discuss it in great depth tomorrow. everything. And I'm like, who has the time to sit there and really, when you think about it, go through and then micro levels analyze someone's life to that degree? It's kind of strange to me. It's very unusual.
Usually overall, like, they're just very lonely people that, like, their sense of reality is so warped because I think we can all kind of relate to it through this pandemic where your screens become the people because we're not seeing the people as much right now, but those people are lonely like that the whole time.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, actually. I think there is, especially when you do find yourself, especially in an isolation situation like this, you suddenly, in a lot of cases, for people who have lost their jobs, you have a lot of time on your hands, and I ran events for a living, so there's no events happening here. So I've had a lot of time to really process and think about stuff, which is great in some respects, because let's say you've always wanted to take up painting and you've never really had that excuse before because you're like, well, I've got to go to work, or I've really got to do this, I've got to pay these bills. When that stuff becomes eliminated and is no longer in your control, it gives you permission to pursue the things you wouldn't otherwise be able to do, whether it's a podcast like this, which I think is absolutely amazing. And actually, I do have a question for you guys. How did you get started in your podcast? I'm just curious. What's the story?
Julia?
Oh, yeah. So about, was it 3 years ago, Kat and I were living together in a house we called the Pinup Pad. Right. And we decided to start doing the podcast. After about 6 months, we got busy with events and life and all the other things and just kind of put it on the shelf. And we'd always been talking about bringing it back. And the really great thing about this pandemic is now we didn't even have the excuse of being too busy. And we decided to do that. So we started reaching out to people like you, and it's been a great way to connect and learn a lot more about communities we don't know much about.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I think overall, like, we started Working the Tease 5 years ago ish, which was, Julia and I were both in a burlesque troupe in LA. And,
I love burlesque.
And we started interviewing burlesque dancers that then turned into recording burlesque shows that we would go to, that then turned into us producing our own events. And there's a bunch of different brands that are all umbrellaed under Julia's company. If you want to tell Isabella about that.
Oh, yeah. So we do a show called Pinups on Tour. That's like a World War II style burlesque show for the military. We have Working the Tease, which is our traditional burlesque show. We do this podcast. Mm-hmm. We have the Green Light District. That's a cannabis-based entertainment company. And then we do corporate events. So nothing as fun as your cat parties, but still.
Super fun. Sounds awesome.
You also do vampire balls, correct?
Or I do vampire balls. That's actually my main gig, as it were.
Tell us about those.
Super fun. So I love New Orleans as a city. I think it's very dark and romantic and mysterious. So I actually teamed up with the Audubon Zoo, the zoo in New Orleans. Okay. And it actually goes back to what we were discussing about the Playboy Mansion. As you know, they had the zoo on the property. Right. I love the idea of people being able to walk around their full ball gowns with a mask and a glass of champagne while walking by the crocodiles, or in the fountain we had, real mermaids with long, the silicone mermaid tails.
Yes. Very expensive tails.
Yeah. And I love the idea they have a carousel there. And I was like, well, I want people to be able to, adults, to be on the carousel in their ball gown and take lovely, really gorgeous pictures as a photo opportunity, right? And we had, stilt walkers and jugglers and fire spinners and performers. And it was just, and we had burlesque as well, actually. I do love my burlesque. I'm quite a fan of it myself.
Who did you hire as the burlesque dancers in New Orleans?
So we actually have our own troupe, V and Channing. So they do a lot of very Cirque du Soleil style things. In fact, they've been out to Vegas a lot, recently before pandemic, because they're actually training with a circus troupe out there. And Channing does something called Sear Wheel, which is, yeah, you know what it is?
Yes. Yeah, the big wheel.
The big wheel where and it's like crazy and it's really, really cool. But yeah, we are actually our main burlesque dancer we had. You may or may not know of her. Her name was Chairman Meow, and she actually won an award at the London Burlesque Festival, and she would go to BurlieCon and all the different burlesque things, and she had her own following, and she was actually one of the main Chateau kittens and probably one of the most inspiring people I ever met. And she got cancer a few years ago and passed away, and it was like a really sad thing for the whole burlesque community, because everyone was kind of grieving her loss. I don't think I'll ever have a burlesque dancer as good as her again in my lifetime, because she just had such a beautiful free style on her. For her, it came so naturally, she was one of those girls, just even if it was improv, she would make it look like a really choreographed, well-rehearsed routine on a spot, which is a really hard thing to do, as I'm sure you guys know. And she would sometimes wear like rollerblades on stage and stuff. She had all sorts of crazy, really unique kind of different burlesque acts, and she was wonderful. But yeah, I couldn't even begin to list all of them because we have so many dancers in our troupe. But it's not just that, obviously the fire as well is a huge part. Fire poi, fire fans, fire hoop, where they have a hoop. It astounds me, honestly, the amount of talent that surrounds us, and sometimes how underappreciated I think it can be. A lot of these people I know, they struggle really hard to get gigs, and in a nightclub industry, and I'm on the other side of that as a promoter and event producer, I think it's really hard to kind of make the money to efficiently pay the performers what they deserve and need for their performances. And so it presents this kind of predicament. So when I can do a large scale event like the zoo at New Orleans, it's fabulous because I can have a large budget and pay everyone, and it's everybody wins, everybody's happy, the event goes off beautifully, and fingers crossed, it is still set up to go this year. We've already sold nearly 1,000 tickets, so as I did a cross, hopefully it all works out. We'll see what happens here.
How big is the event? Like, how many attendees?
Yeah, so last year we nearly had 2,000 people in our first year of running it in New Orleans, which was amazing for a first year event. I also run the Denver Vampire Ball here in Denver at the church nightclub. It's in this used to be an abandoned church, this gorgeous giant stained glass window, almost looks like a cathedral, a very Phantom of the Opera, and we converted that and turned that into a beautiful show. And they're SoCo of a group that run that, and they are amazing. So I'm hoping, fingers crossed, their nightclub survives this as well, because it's also shut down because of a pandemic, obviously. So we'll see what happens there. But I love running vampire balls. It's probably my favorite thing. We just, for the first time this year, did an event in Las Vegas. And in fact, the Chateau nightclub, because we have the same tag, because we have the same name, obviously, on Instagram. So we're always joking that we accidentally cross-contaminate. And so basically, well, maybe you'd like to do an event with us. And I was like, that would be amazing. It's like under the Eiffel Tower, obviously not the real Eiffel Tower. There's a replica of the Eiffel Tower, as you know, in Vegas at Paris Casino. And they were like, yeah, let's do the whole club and all the different floors and everything. And it was wild. It was really great. And then afterwards, we did an event at the Foundation Room at Mandalay Bay, which was they have phenomenal skyline views of Vegas. It's so beautiful there. And that was luckily kind of right before the pandemic. So we just got away with it by an inch. And I definitely want to try and do that again next year, assuming everything opens up, because it was wonderful. It was really cool.
Nice. So what is the trick to good vampire teeth?
I'm a fangsmith, or as I like to say, a fangsmithress. I actually,
make your own fangs.
I do make the dental grade acrylic fangs myself. Yes.
Wow. Do you sell them on Etsy, or you sell them on your site?
But yeah, there's two ways you can do it. The best way is, let's say we're doing it. I had you here in person, and you were sitting in front of me. Then I could actually do it directly on your teeth and do that for you and get a perfect Hollywood grade pair of fangs. And they're removable, but they fit, but you don't have to use the glue in them. They just click in and they will stay. They're really, really great. The other way that you can do is, if you get a mold of your teeth made at the dentist and you mail it in, then I can take that mold and make it still to fit your teeth. But I personally prefer doing it in person because it allows me to meet the client and talk to them, you know. And I actually learned it. I have a partner called Ricardo. He's he's like the vampire king of Mexico City. And he's this really hot model. He's like very sexy guy. Anyway, enough of that. But he actually he did the dental technician course, and he's the one who taught me how to make them so that I would have another source of income, which was actually really cool. And I had so much fun learning how to do it, because now I'll make like vampire fangs, but I'll also make kitten fangs, and I call them vampire fangs, right? Because it's a mixture between the vampire and the kitten.
Aww.
And it's great. I'll have to make you guys fangs sometime. You should come
Absolutely. I would love that. Just because I'm interested, like, how much does that cost? Like, what are the price points on it?
So on average, I think there are a couple of fangsmiths out there, and from what I've seen, and I know most of them may charge around $200 for a session. I've been doing $100 per session currently. I think it's just more affordable to do it that way. And when you're doing it, you have to sit. It takes about 40 minutes. It is a bit of a lengthy process to do it, but you want to get it perfect and do it right. So that's all part of the magic, you know?
You have some fascinating income streams. I want you to talk about the cat paintings because I love them. I love them. I keep trying to convince my dad to get one for his cat.
I have to hang on. Oh, they're dropping stuff here. Check this out. Okay, let's see if this will actually show up on the camera. I have one right here. There we go.
Aww.
Yes. It's like Marie Antoinette style. With the kitten there. But I actually just started doing that. I'd never done oil painting before. And it was like last year, I was like looking at we talk about revenue streams. I was like, it would be really cool if I could paint. I was like, but I've never really painted before. So I didn't know if I could paint, which was a weird place to start. And so I just thought one day I'm just going to try. You know, it doesn't hurt to try. It could come out awful. And I did it. And it was the strangest thing. People talk about like the whole reincarnation or past life thing. I don't know if I necessarily believe in it or not, but I could paint. I don't know what it was. I didn't need to be taught. I just instantaneously could paint like on this extreme level. I was like, what the hell? Looking at the first painting I did, I was like, this is like crazy. Like looks like the portrait. And that was like the first one I ever did. And so I was like, okay, I'll make some more. So I made some more. And obviously we do the cat thing. So I wanted to paint powerful, empowered women throughout history as cats. So courtesans like Madame de Pompadour, right? Or queens like Queen Elizabeth or Marie Antoinette, right? People that in history we look to as being, you know, women who have kind of stirred it a bit or made things exciting. I think it's cool.
Have you done Cleopatra yet as a cat?
No, but I have to. That's like it's on my to-do list. Right now I'm actually painting Lady Jane Grey, and she was famous in England, unfortunately, for being called the 9-day queen. She was very much forced into being queen. She didn't want to do it. They made her sign papers, and then her competitor, Mary, who was the daughter of Henry VIII, who had all those wives and beheaded them, very evil chap. She basically said, I don't want this Jane Grey on the throne, took the girl, and she was like 18, just a teenager, and beheaded her after 9 days. They chopped off her head. But I still think she's a very interesting character in history because she was very empathetic and compassionate. I feel like if she hadn't have just been queen for 9 days, she would have done quite well.
Oh, that's so adorable. I just think it's hysterical and adorable.
I just love how you've taken this passion you have and you've turned it into so many different projects. Like, you're such a creative person and everything you do is just like so unique and whimsical and lovely. I think it's amazing.
Thank you. And I would actually like to say the same of you guys. From what you just told me, you have all these different things going on, not just the podcast. You're obviously doing your own events as well. And you've very much taken that into your own hands and said creatively, what else can I do? How can we explore this and have fun with this while making it a viable way to kind of, you know, sustain yourself? And that is admirable.
Yes, absolutely. We're all boss bitches. Cheers to the. Cheers to that.
Yay. Oh my God, I love your glass. Do you have a flamingo on that?
It is a flamingo straw.
Oh, I love that.
My dad had a birthday a couple weeks ago, and we had a Zoom luau for the family. Oh. So I bought a bunch of stuff at the dollar store and then mailed it to everybody across the country.
Fantastic. I love that.
So I've been using these paper straws since then, because why not?
It's like eco-friendly and stuff as well.
Yes.
So before the pandemic, we had the whole straw crisis.
Oh, the straw crisis.
You know,
remember when that was the worst thing that was going on?
Can you imagine if you'd gone back in time and was like, hey, during the straw crisis, do you know there's going to be an apocalypse? And you'd be like, what? Huh?
I used to joke when they went to paper straws in California, they didn't want to give them out. So you would like lean in and you'd be like, hey, can I have a straw? And I would feel I would feel like I was buying
yes.
I felt like I was buying drugs. Because like they were behind the counter, and I was like, I go to my store and I buy my drugs like a normal person in California, but then I have to like be like, can I have a straw?
Straw. You got any straws in there?
Yeah. So
it's real. Yeah, the whole pandemic thing's been crazy. Actually, I was in fact one of the first people in Colorado to contract COVID-19. True story. And you know how it came about was because of the events. A lot of when we do our events, we have people fly in from all over the world. And my friend Jeff, actually, he owns a restaurant up in Keystone, which is one of the ski resorts in Colorado. And someone had flown in from Italy or somewhere where it was already quite a problem and had kind of spread it. And at this time, we didn't know it was a problem. Nobody knew. So we had the Denver Vampire Ball. Everything was wonderful. The event was super successful. You know, we had very sexy parties. I came down with what I thought was a flu a couple of days later. And I was like, oh, that darn orgy flu, you know, always getting you after the parties. But then literally after I was like, well, this is obviously not just, you know, the flu, because it felt very different for one thing. Like I don't really get high grade fevers or temperatures, even if I'm quite sick, but I had a temperature of 105. And I was like, okay, that's an unusual thing for me anyway.
Yeah, a pretty high temperature.
Yeah, and then my partner, he got sick too. And we were like, okay, maybe we should go in. And at this time, they were still new on the testing, right? And so it took like a week to get tested and the whole thing. They did 2 different swabs. They shove a swab up into your sinus. It's very painful. It was like horrifically painful to do. And anyway, they came back and said, oh, you know, you've got the dreaded corona thing. So then we went on quarantine. This is before lockdown or anything. Quarantine for 14 days in the house, no leaving, nothing, not even to go to a grocery store, nothing, you know. And, you know, we had a little sign on the front of our house that said, very plague-like, you know, do not enter COVID-19 infected, kind of little red X. It was I made it quite dramatic. But
Mask of the Red Death.
Yes, like, so and it said, I even wrote in there for the delivery people, I was like, do not touch doorbell, do not touch handle, etc., so that they wouldn't inadvertently, you know, get infected by it. And it lasted 3 freaking weeks. It was 3 weeks of having it. And the crazy part was we were fine by the end of it. No problems. Didn't have to go into the hospital, anything like that. But my partner, who makes the fangs that I mentioned before, Ricardo, from Mexico City, he'd flown in from Mexico City for the Vampire Ball. He flew back to Mexico City, and he'd obviously caught it from me there. And because he's a smoker, he had to go into hospital, he had to do the whole ventilator thing and everything. And he was in hospital for 3 weeks in isolation. They wouldn't even let his own mother come and visit him. The whole thing was crazy. But luckily, he was okay. He was fine by the end of it. He kind of struggled, but got through it, which I'm very thankful for. So he's okay now. But the point of the story is you don't realize, like, how infectious this thing is and how rapidly it spreads. I did a number count from my event at the Vampire Ball in Denver. 30 people were sick with it, which is a large number. I mean, even if you've got hundreds and hundreds of people there, that's still a large number of people. So I'm really hoping come summer it kind of dies down. The heat will take it out. But again, fingers crossed, you know, because nobody gets sick. Yeah.
When is your New Orleans event?
So a New Orleans event is right by Halloween. And in fact, Halloween this year falls on a Saturday, which is awesome. It's really cool. But I think we'll probably end up doing our event on the Friday. I did speak to the zoo the other day. Everybody's like, we're just not sure. I'm not sure. We've sold a lot of tickets. And so it's very much a situation of watch and wait. I've not cancelled the event by any means, but I did hear Voodoo Fest, which is very famous in New Orleans. They have cancelled their event, which is right at the same time that I throw my event. So we'll see what happens. And if it does come to it and we have to cancel it for people's safety, that's absolutely what we'll do. I mean, that's just a priority. It's the last thing I want to do because, of course, I want everyone to have fun. And we all love to party and go out, right? And that's the best part. So I think all we can do is watch and wait. And at the very worst, I won't even cancel. I'll just postpone it and just move it. You know, that way everyone can keep their tickets and still have that kind of thing. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. It's very dramatic.
Yeah, I think we're all kind of in that same boat right now. You know, we have shows on the books coming up in the fall, and no one wants to cancel an event on a venue or a client that's been really good, but at the same time, the safety of our audience, like you said, it's spread through your event, 30 people in one night, Yeah. So I think that's a good test market and a good reason for us all to be kind of cautious about it going forward.
Very much so. So you guys said you've done events in LA, is that correct?
We do events all over the country. So we've done events in 46 states so far.
Wow.
So,
yes. Okay. Yes. Nice.
Primarily, mainly Julia. I just come along for the ride for some of them. So.
All right. So I worked on an event in LA, and I don't know if you guys know the venue. It was the Globe Theatre. And it's so beautiful. Like I was sitting in Marilyn Monroe's opera box, sipping my champagne, and the other one's like Charlie Chaplin's opera box. There's two. I was like, this is just a fantastic venue, I love that. It would be so good for a burlesque show.
Those classic venues.
Doesn't Tease If You Please do the Globe?
Nice,
at the Globe, yeah. So Tease As You Please is produced by Donna Hood, which if you aren't following her, you should be. She's amazing.
She's gorgeous. Yes.
Yeah, her show's beautiful and it's filmed there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Done there. I guess not filmed.
Perfect. Yeah.
And
maybe that's online, but you could watch virtually during the pandemic. Virtual burlesque show. There you go.
There's plenty of them going on.
Are there? That's cool.
Yeah, there are. Some of our old burlesque producers, the Triptease, the Damn DeVille. How do you say Harley's, Julia?
The DeVilles.
Damn DeVilles are doing it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Love that. That's like taking a bad situation and making it into something creative and good.
Exactly. It brings the ladies to your living room.
Yeah. Who doesn't want that?
Exactly.
So,
go ahead.
Go ahead. I was just going to briefly talk about relationships in the sexy world. Because I find it always interesting. Are you in a relationship at the moment? Are you not? Did you meet your significant other in a sexy venue? Like, if not, how did you explain, all the things you're into?
So I actually have a couple of partners right now. I have one girlfriend who I love very much. She's actually also a model here at the Chateau. Her name is Rachel. And then I have two male significant partners in a polyamorous way. And that is Daniel, who's the chap that I met while I was in England, who kind of spent time here in the first place. And then Ricky, who we're talking about, who was a fangsmith from Mexico City. And I obviously met Daniel in person in England. I met Rachel through the events here, actually through the sexy events we're talking about. So she'd actually come to one of the parties with her partner, who's called Chris, and we kind of hit it off from there. And she actually, the last documentary we did, it wasn't Vice, it was TV show Extreme Love. We did a show on that, and it kind of focused on a relationship with her, which was kind of nice in that respect to have that separation there. But I fully believe in polyamory, and that the more you love, the more you can love. But the main principle there is anytime you're doing a polyamorous relationship is honesty.
Honesty. Yes.
Honesty. Honesty is the best policy. If you, and the understanding that things like jealousy and things are natural emotions that will happen in any relationship, and learning to communicate. And if you can communicate your problems with your partner and actually sit down and have a healthy conversation with them, you can do anything. Like, you can take over the world. I swear to God, it's so important to have with your relationships people you can discuss and actually speak to beyond the sexy bedroom stuff, which is great. Like, that's so much fun, right? You want to have that foundation of stability and healthiness in polyamory.
And you get to see different aspects of yourself through the different relationships you're in, which is one of the things I find most amazing about it, that you get to play different roles in your own life.
So are you guys, are you monogamous, poly? I'm curious for you guys what your relationship is.
I'm poly, but I'm a very slow poly. So I would say like I really enjoy the relationship with the people before it becomes physical. Because it's like getting to know that person and understanding what it is. And, you know, I have many relationships of people I love that like, we haven't actually been physical.
It's very demisexual.
Yeah. Right? It's also like very, love is love, and it's like, one of the things I find is I'm not really good at monogamy because it limits me, and then in doing so limits the other people.
Right.
So like to me, it just became a hack where I was like, okay, I haven't done this the best when I've done the monogamous relationships. Why don't we try it where it's like, I'm just opening myself up to the idea that I can love anybody at any time.
Yeah, I love that. I think it's a lot of power, and I think it's something very new that women are even starting to explore or being allowed to explore, you know, as a concept. And I think a lot of my friends, actually, especially my younger friends, millennials and below, are like really exploring that as a new kind of thing. And so many of them are having a really good time with it. And just, I see so many happy relationships with that. But it's kind of interesting to watch it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. It's to me, the thing that kills a relationship is expectations. And when you release the expectations, you know, it's a much better situation.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%.
That's the concept anyways.
Yeah.
I mean, I think whenever you're dealing with relationships, humans are so complicated, and the mirrors, they're just like mirrors right up to your face. You know, whoever you're dating just reflects back all the good and bad about your own self. And I think that's the nice thing about polyamory is people get to see lots of different reflections, like Kat was saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah. But that being said, I love a good monogamous relationship to watch from the outside. Like when a couple is like so good for each other and you see them,
it's lovely, isn't it?
It's the greatest thing in the world to watch. Like I think it's so fabulous.
I love seeing
I think
people in love.
I don't see a lot of examples of that, though, is something I'll say. That's one of the things that makes I would love to find a monogamous relationship, but it's hard to find one when you don't quite see the pattern of great ones out there in the world that often.
Right. You need you need a relationship that you can look to for inspiration and kind of say, okay, this is kind of a model of something I'm looking for. And I agree. When I look at monogamous relationships, I think ultimately a lot of us, we do deeply crave inside. We're like, we'd love to find the one. You know, the soulmate, the concept of it, such a romantic concept. But then you look at actual monogamous relationships that you know that you're trying to aspire to. And I can't think of too many for myself, to be honest. I really can't. And that, just like you were saying, very identical to that, basically.
Nice. Well, you know, I know it exists out there for somebody. Like somewhere.
It's like the unicorn.
Yes,
mythological thing hiding out there somewhere.
Well, this has been lovely. Julie, did you have any more questions?
I think that's it. Yes. Where can people find you if they want to find out all about your parties or you or all the good things?
Great. So our main website for the magazine is www.thechateau.org. You can also find me for events under Isabella's Parlor on Facebook. And I think that's it. My Instagram is under Isabella's Chateau, and that's all the places you can find me. Oh,
well, I want to come to your next events in Vegas. Oh, what?
Yes. One thing, I did actually just start a podcast. And there are 5 episodes out, and it's on Spotify, TuneIn, etc. And it's called The Hourglass with Isibella.
Perfect. Everybody should go and give that a listen and a download and all the good things that make the algorithm like podcasts.
Write the review.
Write a review. I definitely want to come to one of your events next time they're in Vegas. I think it sounds so fun. Yes, it sounds like something that shouldn't be missed. And I'm definitely going to be following you after this. We really appreciate you taking the time to talk with us today.
Thank you so much, girls. I appreciate it.
Thank you for
Thank
having
you. Bye.
Bye.
Oh, well, that was great. I loved learning about such an interesting and glamorous niche.
I know. So interesting. So interesting. Like,
she's so flawless looking. For those of you that aren't watching, for those of you that are listening on the podcast, I highly recommend going over to her Instagram. It's stocked full of amazing fodder for your eyes.
Yes.
Great.
So many fabulous pictures. Just gorgeous. Like, I can only imagine what her closets look like.
Yeah, and I honestly, like, on a slightly more serious note, I really appreciated she shared her coronavirus experience.
Yes.
I think we forget in the event world why we're all not doing events. And she's a very good example of, unfortunately, when her event became a hot spot and people that got tickets to her event got sick, and her own partner ended up
in the hospital.
In the hospital, like, that's not worth having a party over.
Yeah. So, I mean, we talked about this a little bit before we were on air, but we're definitely at a point where there seems to be a divide between the people who want to keep staying home and the people who are more prone to, like, hanging out in larger areas, especially with Memorial Day. I've seen it on the news, and we don't need to get deep in this, but it's definitely something you have to think about, because it's not just you, it's the ramifications of where it goes when people hang out together.
Yeah. And I mean, like we said, we were talking about this before. And one of the things that in my life right now, I'm really not in contact with anybody that is of a higher risk for getting more ill from this illness than the illness already causes. So I live with 30 somethings. I'm really pretty much sheltering in place still for the most part, beyond going to the grocery store and things here and there. So it's really not, for me, my roommate went back to work this week and he's flying. And I was like, at the end of the day, I think we just have to be really cognizant who we come into contact with, because, like, if you're going to let yourself be exposed, then you have to be responsible for protecting
the people you love,
the vulnerable population. Exactly.
Right. Exactly.
But speaking of coronavirus, which seems to be the hot topic these days.
What? Get out of town. How could that happen in the middle of a pandemic?
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out. Sorry, my thing's asking me if I want to allow Google Chrome to do something. Okay, we're not gonna have pictures today, guys. Google Chrome doesn't want to let me. But anyways, so speaking of coronavirus, there was a article in the New York Times about how coronavirus is actually changing dating for the better. Specifically, it's changing online dating for the better.
Yes.
Yes. And I thought there were some really interesting points made in this article. But one of the points that I thought was most interesting is that it's kind of forcing people to talk. Like, remember when you were in, like, high school and you would be on the phone and you would spend 2.5 hours on the phone just talking about everything in your dreams?
Yes.
Grown-ups are doing that again.
Yes, I agree. And I have noticed that, like, of the people I'm communicating with or have reached out to me, it's a different relationship than what it's been in the past because of that too, where it's like you have to talk because that's all there is. Like, it's like you have to get to know a person more and be like, how is your day? What's going on? Like, how do you feel?
Have you had video dates with people?
I haven't had any video dates with, like, romantic partners. I actually, what we were talking about last week with the fairy trail where they do the online, I actually started communicating with a couple of people that way to kind of, because I think it would be interesting to go on a virtual date, like, to the Louvre, because I've never done that. Like, so I'm like, fuck it. Why not? I'll do it with somebody in Abu Dhabi because, like, I just want to talk to people, and
why not? Right.
Why not? You never know. You never know. This could be one of the loves of my life.
It could be. You could be finding your next soulmate. I know for me, I've had a few video dates with people, and it's almost kind of like it's interesting because it's like I've had these great conversations, but like they haven't led to dates. I even had one guy that I was I think we had like 3 or 4 video dates with, and then like it didn't lead to a date. And I was just kind of like, wow, we wasted a lot of time of our lives to not date.
Do you feel like you wasted time, or do you feel like you got clearer on what you wanted or didn't want?
I guess, I think so much of people, it's like, it's a way for them to try. I don't think I got clearer. I don't know. At this point with dating, like, I feel like so much of the first date is you're not getting clear. You're just like getting past. It's all kind of BS on the first date, anyways. Mm-hmm. So I guess that's the nice thing about the video call is it gets that stuff out of the way,
right?
And you can kind of start getting to know someone. Like one of the guys I was talking to, he was like, "Oh, it's nice because you don't have makeup on, you're not dressed up. I can see like what you actually look like." And I guess in that sense, that's true. Like I'm not going to get all dolled up to do a video call,
right?
Except with you, Kat.
Of course. I mean, I'm wearing a tiara, so like,
Yeah, I have for those of you also not watching, I have a very low top on today. That was the cleavage was my dolling up for the.
Yeah, and the glasses, the sexy librarian glasses.
The sexy librarian glasses, they serve a purpose though, because I need them to read our articles.
Well, that's also very important.
But one of the other things that this article mentioned is that sex and money are now removed from dating.
Agreed.
So, which I thought was a really interesting point. So traditionally speaking, you'd have the date, the guy would pay. At the end of it, you'd have the decision to make, right?
Right.
All those layers are removed. So it doesn't matter how much he spends on you. It doesn't matter how much you put out. Right. Those things are no longer relevant in the equation.
Yes. And it adds an interesting level because you're really getting to know the person more as the person. Because I have this theory that the more money that they spend on you on the first date, the more insecure they are. Because they're trying to compensate, right? Like they don't know you. It's not like if they spend $500 or $600 on a date, it's like, I'm doing this because it's a special occasion and I know you love to do this. It's because I want to impress you because I want
exactly.
You're a pretty girl. I want to impress you, whatever the reason are. And it's like, that's not on the table right now because restaurants are opening, but it's not like, it's still somewhat not on the table where it's like, I'm going to spend a lot of money to impress you in the hopes that I'm going to take you to bed,
Yeah. It's like you have to win me over with your personality.
Right. Exactly. and being I think, an honest human being.
Yeah. Which is a lot tougher than men using their money and women using their sex appeal. It's,
it is.
It's a little bit tougher. So yeah. I bet I'm going to make a prediction that the relationships forged during coronavirus are going to be strong.
Yeah. I mean, I think that it's one of those things that like anytime you can have a relationship when you're in the shit, it's like the easy times are pretty easy,
Mm-hmm. I kind of another coronavirus topic. This is actually a CNN article that is about kind of the oldest profession, prostitution, and how it's being affected by social distancing. If you want to look it up, it came out May 25th. It's really interesting. But there were some kind of interesting points that the article brought up. For instance, sex workers right now are asked to do, there's less work on the table with more risk. Less work on the table, more risk. There's also more people in the field working. So the supply and demand has driven the cost down.
You mean people in the field because they don't have the other ways to make money?
Earn money, correct.
Like strippers. Like strippers can't make money at a strip club. They can only make money doing prostitution because the clubs are closed.
Correct. So there's been this whole kind of thing where it's like there's less work, higher risk, less money, more competition, and it's created this like really terrible environment to be a sex worker in right now. And one of the major challenges is how governments are handling their aid to sex workers. We talked about this in a previous episode, but sex workers have been pretty much left out of the stimulus package here in America. And they were left out of many other countries too.
Were they?
Yeah. Well, I know in Europe they were left out. There was actually these really big protests this week where, you know, sex workers, there are workers and all this stuff going on because people are starting to be like, hey, like if we're not going to open up our economy, this affects me too. And you need to acknowledge that I'm a community that needs to be served. I will say bravo to Japan because in their April stimulus, they actually added sex workers in.
Well, bravo to Japan for understanding that the oldest profession in the world still needs a stimulus package.
Yes. And another interesting fact, we've been talking a lot about OnlyFans. This was in the article about how a lot of sex workers obviously are moving online. So they reached out to OnlyFans to figure out what exactly is the increase. They're getting about 200,000 signups every 24 hours on OnlyFans.
Holy moly.
Yeah, it's up 175%.
That's an insane number that they're probably very happy about, regardless of the situation.
There's certain business models that have done really well in this virus, and OnlyFans is one of them.
Yeah, and Zoom.
I bet they're really glad they're not prejudicial against sex workers right now.
Yeah. I mean, it's an interesting time because there are a lot of businesses out there where people were like, this is a fail-proof business. I'll always make money, you know, and like a lot of it goes out the window when there are no people, you know, like you remove people from the equation and it's like, well, it's not fail-proof if we can't interact with each other.
Exactly. And I mean, even the oldest profession is having that. This whole virus has trickled down to parts of our economy that I don't think a lot of us would have even predicted. But when you take especially a crisis that involves social distancing, that is going to have a huge effect on a profession where you have to be close to perform.
Yeah. So. Yeah. I mean, I have to tell you, I was gardening or swimming or whatever in the last couple of days. And I was thinking about dancing at strip club. And I was like, when is the next time that's going to happen? Not even just for me, but in general, like I was literally thinking, cause you know, when I danced at Hustler is a massive club, you know, there would be 200 dancers in any given night. Mm-hmm. And like, we're 11, 12 weeks into this pandemic. Like, I mean, how can they even sustain themselves if there's no income generated at all?
Yeah. How's the building even still there? I don't know.
Exactly.
And we're going to find, I think that's the longer this goes on, we're going to kind of see, I'm interested to see, being in Vegas, what shows come back after this pandemic.
Right.
I personally think the casinos are going to use this as an excuse to get rid of a lot of contracts that they now can get out of. For maybe some shows that weren't performing as well, right? Mm-hmm. So I think but also there's producers who just can't keep the theater rented during this. You know what I mean? Right. Like, it's like, if I can't pay a $40,000 theater bill with nobody in the seats.
Yeah.
So we'll see what comes back after all this. You know, I'm looking forward positively to the future. But one thing I'm also doing is I got inspired by last week's Naked History, and I found another naked lady in history.
Naked ladies in history. I love it. Have you started watching The Great yet?
I haven't started. It's still on my list.
You will definitely need to check it out. But yes, tell us about Naked Ladies.
Naked ladies. So I decided that we need to hear more about all the wonderful naked women in history because I think they've been drastically ignored.
Yes.
And this one is probably one of the most infamous naked ladies in history. It's Lady Godiva. So most people know Godiva as kind of the chocolate. I think it's the Belgian chocolate. But it's actually Lady Godiva is a 900-year-old English legend. The origin of the legend is Lady Godiva was married to the Earl of Mercia. And at the time, he had really leveled some really crippling taxes against his people. And Lady Godiva was considered a very compassionate, a person who was loved by her people. And she really kept begging and begging her lord, please lessen these taxes. They can't do it. They can't do it. Mm-hmm. As a joke, her husband said, well, if you humiliate yourself by riding naked horseback through the center of town, I will go ahead and get rid of all these taxes. So her being a woman who loved her people decided to do all that. So she stripped her clothes, got on her horseback, and you get this famous image of Lady Godiva with her hair just right over her boobs.
Strategically covering everything.
Exactly. So covering her boobs. And what was said is that the town was so respectful of her doing this that they all turned their eyes away. Except for one guy named Tom. He couldn't resist, and he went and looked through the window, and as punishment, he was struck blind. And that's where the term Peeping Tom comes from.
Yes.
So that is our Lady Godiva history. It actually worked, her going through town. It did get her husband to lessen his taxes on the people. He honored his word. Although people say now that might have been an exaggeration of a story. Mm-hmm. And they accredit it to the first person who actually wrote about it was in the 11th century. So about 100 years after her death, an English monk wrote about it as the legend of the Peeping Tom. So it's kind of hard to tell if it's
real or not.
Either way, she's a naked lady in history who saved the day with her tits.
Yes, she did. She did. In all of her naked glory.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. When I grow my hair out, I don't know if anybody else does this, but I always try to see if my hair will cover my boobs because it's such an iconic look.
It is. That between Lady Godiva and then also a mermaid, like mermaids are also notorious for being like topless, but having the hair strategically cover the right areas so that like you're sexy, you've got your implied nudity.
Well, so you may remember those iconic images from Studio 54 where they brought in a Lady Godiva.
Who was playing?
Have you seen these?
Yes, but somebody famous did it. Who was it?
It was like Donna Summers or somebody. It was like somebody massive. But it's basically, Studio 54 was all about the huge spectacle. They brought a white horse in, a naked lady, hair covering, rode her through the club. It's one of the more iconic things that happened at Studio 54, which I love a good Studio 54 story. We're going to have to dig into some of those for our naked history.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Because that was, I think my favorite is that they were piping the drugs into the air filtration system.
Yeah. You got to have a good time if you're at Studio 54, right? Whether you like it or not.
Right. So we're just going to drug you either way. So there you go. There we go.
You know what? It was a time in history where people were just a little less concerned about lawsuits, I think.
I would say just a tad.
Yeah.
So I will say that it's funny. It seems a lot of times when people are doing a lot of drugs, the idea of lawsuits seem to go out the window. I don't know if it's like you got to do drugs to be less uptight, or if it's just like a byproduct of doing the drugs. But like, I mean, I've gone to Burning Man a couple times, and when you flip over that ticket, you have to sign to go in, and it's maybe you don't sign, but it says on the back of the ticket that you could die because like they do not want the lawsuit because you died at Burning Man.
Yeah, no, and you know what? Fair enough. You walked in, you knew what you're getting into.
Yeah.
I mean, they're making people sign waivers like that to get their nails done here in Vegas.
Are they?
Yeah, like to get your nails done, you have to sign a waiver that's like, if I die from COVID, I won't sue the nail parlor. I mean, that's the world we're living in, you know? These nail parlors are like,
Did you get your nails done? Did you go and get?
No, someone else posted it on there.
Okay.
Yeah, that's how I saw it.
Hi, this is Kat. We're gonna just chit chat for a second until Julia bounces back on. I've never been in this situation. Oh, there she is. She's coming back on. There she is. I was like, okay, what story am I going to tell?
That's all right. I appreciate you taking the dead air time away. I'll try to edit that out of the podcast, and if I forget to edit it out of the podcast,
it's all right. It wasn't that long.
It wasn't that long. Yeah. So, anyways, but I don't remember where we were at. I got kicked out of the broadcast.
Yeah. Nails. We were talking about nails.
Nails. Yeah. No. It's my nails. I'm just doing. I've given up. I'm working on Bardot. That's she's destroying my nails.
And Bardot is your car, for those who don't know.
If you were not listening last week, I got a 1978 Spitfire, and she's my new project. She's amazing. We put a top on her, so now she can be topless or covered up like a lady, whatever she chooses. It's great. I'm having a lot of fun. I've sanded her. I've done like drilling and rivets and heavy duty snaps.
You need some Rosie the Riveter pictures.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. In addition to that, I've been rhinestoning a lot this week, getting ready for some projects with Pinups on Tour that are coming up, some new content videos that we're creating just to keep everybody connected and keep everybody entertained during this time of crisis.
Nice. I have to say, so my dad and I usually on a Friday night pop a couple edibles and then end up watching some Taylor Swift music videos or Taylor Swift concerts. And
that's cute.
Yes, it's adorable. But I mean, we watch other stuff too, but we end up watching some Taylor Swift along the way. And her costumes for her concerts are amazing. You should watch them for inspiration because they're just great. They're just
now I'm gonna have to get stoned and get into Taylor Swift videos.
Oh, so much fun! She's such a fun performer. She's rhinestones and rainbows and all that stuff.
Well, I think fun performers are great. If you want to see some fun performers, check out our YouTube, which is WTT Burley.
Okay, for us.
Our YouTube.
Yes.
WTT Burley. If you guys want to check out, there's some great performers. We have over 200 videos on there from performers all across the country. Some great burlesque. You can pull it up right on your TV if you have a smart cast. Go to Workin The Tease, find us there. We also are on all the socials at WTT Burley. You can find our podcast in iTunes, Stitcher, and everywhere podcasts are. You guys, if you're enjoying our podcast, you can do us a favor. You can download it, listen to it, and review it. And if you review it, I'm not trying to pander for good reviews, but if you are going to give a bad review, just don't do it. If you're going to give a good review,
well, why don't you review? You need to give some context to this, Julia, which is that we only have 3 reviews right now, and 2 of them are very nice, and one of them's like, meh.
Yeah, right? So we don't want the meh to show.
Right.
So unfortunately, the meh's bringing us down. So if you have a good review, please leave it for us, or just click the 5 stars on iTunes.
Click the 5 stars and put in an emoji. That's the simplest way to do it.
There you go. Exactly. Keep it simple. We're not asking for a lot. You also don't have to do that. You can just listen to us and enjoy us. Find us online.
Oh, we lost
WTT
her again.
Burlesque.
I'm hoping she's going to come back.
Oh, I'm still here. I don't know. But I think that is it for this week's episode of Working the Tease. My name is Julia Reed Nichols. I think we just lost Kat there. It's okay. We're having technical difficulties. She has a storm in Florida. We're all doing the best we can, broadcasting from our homes. With that said, we're so grateful for you guys' support. Thank you for joining us for this week's episode of Better Than Sex, where we try to answer what's better than sex. We're not sure, but we're certainly going to do everything we can to find out. You guys have a great day. Bye.